It's hard to know what sounds a
Okay,
sham
good morning,
or
everyone.
something.
We'll call this regular meeting of the Operations Planning Committee to order for July 25th. We'll take this a little bit out of order from our agenda. I'd like to take care of these minutes if we could, since we get them stacked up a little bit. So I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 23rd. John moves. May I have a second?
Second.
John seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. And then we'll just go ahead and take care of the meeting minutes of June 27th as well. I know several people who were here then are not here now, but...
You still have enough? Yeah. Motion to approve the June 27th
Okay, I'll
minutes.
second those. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Just in reading this one correction, simply a typo.
Oh, sure.
Aetna. Under mine.
Under the 23rd, or are we on the
Yeah.
23rd?
27th.
Aetna's A-E-T-N-A.
Oh, I don't have that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, yeah, I think people
It's
will
not the,
understand.
it's not
No,
the,
no, no.
isn't that how you spell the volcano? It was a Mount Etna, I think so.
That's true,
Right.
you're right. Okay, so we have approved as amended.
Okay, approved as amended. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Why don't we start to my right?
No, There are a few more corrections on this. I
Okay,
don't know if you
would
want
you give them to
on
Linda?
record.
Please.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry. And we'll start with Mr. Sini this morning.
I don't really have much. I'm just following through with what I talked about last time. We did approve the amendments for the Corbin District at the last meeting. So that project is now ready to go from the town standpoint. I know Mr. Genovese is working with Army Corps of Engineers about the drainage ditch and coming to a settlement on remediating that. But outside of that, we will have one last meeting in July, and we'll go into our August recess. And as I stated at the last meeting, I plan to resign the July 31st. So the commission will have 4 weeks to look for appointment and elect new leadership. That's all I have.
I'll take a moment of personal privilege then to thank you very much.
She did that last meeting, so we're... No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't want to do it yet. I know, no.
It's been on.
Sorry for the lack, yeah, sorry for the lack of clarity, but it was just trying to get some things off our agenda and some other issues I was asked to stay on until July, so.
Okay.
Will be my last meeting, I promise.
Well, again, thank you,
will not
and we look
be
forward
here.
to working with you in a new role in town.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, we'll go this way to Tara. Good morning.
Good morning. We have welcomed Dr. Adley to the district. He is now away on vacation, so we're still in a bit of a transition. But to his credit, he moved things around as best he could. He had these overseas plans for quite some time, but he did cancel some other plans for us. So we are looking to do our goals and objectives for the year at our Tuesday meeting. And that'll be an initial discussion, or Monday, I'm sorry, our meeting was moved to Monday, the 29th. So that's always an important meeting for us. We also set our sections at that meeting. So that is an important meeting. We'll welcome him. We'll look to have his fingerprints on our goals and objectives, and certainly the leadership of our team that has pushed us forward so far. We did hire a new director of finance. And so far he is settling in well. He's got some great new ideas. We've talked to him about kind of updating reports and talking about how we can show it differently based on all the feedback we've received through various budget seasons, and he's very open to that. And so while we miss Mr. Feeney very much for the excellent job he did, I think Rich Rudolph will be a great addition to the district. He has both public and private experience. He has worked at the university level and the public school level, so I think he'll bring a breadth of kind of knowledge and viewpoints that Darren will be lucky to have. And that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. John.
Quiet for the summer at the Board of Finance as well. A couple of comments. As you probably saw, we did pass the $63 million bond authorization for the Oxbridge Elementary School following the RTM approval. So all of those things are now in place for that project to continue to move forward. and it's really kind of up to the building committee to continue with the work that they're doing. That committee remains tightly organized under the leadership of Kip Coons and Duke Deneen. They're doing a great job. They've set the meeting schedule for that committee through, I think, the middle part of next year. Anyway, it's meetings twice a month are going to be scheduled for them, and they'll take those meetings if they need to and cancel them if they don't. But just in terms of the organization around interface with the architects, working through the state for grants to support the project, all of that has been extremely well organized. I've got a lot of confidence in both Kip and Duke for their leadership on that. They're fantastic. I can't say enough good things about both of them. So that remains in progress. The town is looking at a surplus for the end of the year. We're still trying to figure out exactly what that will be. I know Jennifer's working on some final numbers, but at certainly the next Board of Finance meeting and the next OPC meeting, we'll have a full report on all of that. But so far it looks good. I do have from the Joan Town Treasurer a copy of her draft for the investment policy. She was looking for some input, and I've been through that in detail and can comment to her on that, but they do have a new draft of that. That was something that we mentioned collaborating with her on to spend some time in the summer to assist in an update with that policy. My quick read is that it's actually very good in terms of addressing the guidelines that they should be pursuing to prudently invest those funds for safety, liquidity, and security. So I think that's in good shape, but other than that, things are quiet at the Board of Finance and nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you, John. Lois, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here since Seth is out of town. So basically, Seth asked me to just recap what happened at the June RTM meeting. Most of you are aware, but I'll just do a quick synopsis. I think one of the things from me personally looking at it is there were 93 members present, and that's pretty impressive. And, you know, and to be, I don't know if we're exactly at 100 or close to 100. And not only are people on the RTM, but they're showing up, especially at the budget meeting. We had a really busy meeting. We got through a lot of business, and I'm just going to list them because, well, anyway, that we restored the balances to the general fund that was out of the finance group. The resolution for the Highland Farms was the most discussed issue. We amended the resolution to remove Comfort Station from the resolution since there were no plans to build one and somebody wanted that to happen. That passed 61-21-10, so that was the one that there was a lot of conversation. As we all know, there's been a lot of discussion, things like that. It's passed, but I mean, we probably should pay attention to some of the issues and maybe work better to have more information or whatever was needed to, you know, having people vote no is a good thing because it means people are paying attention from that standpoint, but we want to make sure that it's due to people having all the information they needed, and everybody here was very effective in coming up at in the very short run to turn it from the May meeting, which canceled it, which moved it to the June meeting in which we voted for it. So I thank everyone for helping out, get the RTM to vote and vote in favor of it. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, the big piece was is the Oxridge Elementary School, which we supported totally, and that came out really quickly. Everybody really jumped to that, got the information that the RTM needed, and we all got that approved too in June. So everyone was grateful for having it, and I know you were all grateful for us to get it through. But everybody did that. We accepted a gift from the Darien Athletic Fund for a cross-country running path, and we amended Darien's Code of Ordinances for the plastic and paper bag checkout. Monica did an amazing job and pulled it through in over this year with cooperation and involvement of everyone, and that went through 8622, which is really incredible.
That's
so
great.
That's our report, but it was sure a busy meeting in June.
It was, thank you. You know, I noticed that with issues like Highland Farm, and I think we have the issue brewing about Pear Tree beach renovations. Emotions run high, and there is sustained effort on the part of neighbors and those who might be opposed to projects like that. So I'll take the opportunity, since we're on TV, to encourage people who are excited and positive about projects like this to come forward as well. Typically, we don't hear from folks who are accepting of these things, but it's important that we hear from a balance of our community. It's also important that we all go out and seek that information if it doesn't come to us. So, I think you'll find that there, if you watch some of the Pear Tree Building Committee meetings, that, right now we're working through the early stages of opinions. And to your point, Lois, about getting the facts about projects in order to make a well-informed decision. Doesn't mean you have to vote for it if it's not a project that you fundamentally don't want to support. But it's really important to get the facts, and it's also important, since we are all representatives of the electorate, that we go out and seek the input of everyone. We don't listen in our own little echo chamber, if you will. So thank you for bringing that up.
I'd like to just say something, because we have probably the most public hearings of any
Yes.
group, and it is so often that you hear the complaints or the concerns more, and as elected officials, it's important that you do what's right in your mind for the entire community. So I echo your sentiment about that. I guess on Pear Tree Point, has there been any discussion with Jeremy's department or Planning and Zoning Department about, or giving an update of where it stands? Because we haven't had any input on things like parking or anything in that regard. So maybe over this summer, somebody could work with Jeremy's office
absolutely.
and just give an update, maybe even an informational update for the commission come September.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Terry.
Yes, also a brief report. It is summer, and summer rules sort of take over. We did have special session on Monday, which was, we were looking at overriding 3 of the governor's vetoes. We were looking at vetoing 3 of the governor's bills. Didn't happen, but we did vote on school construction bonding. The tolls are still not, they don't have the votes for tolls. There's still a lot of controversy, a lot of misinformation too, which I will be writing a piece on that with the facts, because to your point, Jamie and John, I think you mentioned that, you just want people to understand the facts are out there. You'd have to access them. And it's important to get the facts and make a decision on those facts and not buy into the things that have been spun around to suit a particular point of view. This time of year, I spend a lot of time visiting nonprofits and meeting with nonprofit leaders, with constituents, and also local businesses to hear what their thoughts are. This is a good time for anyone to reach out to me on legislation they're interested in for next session. We start again February 5th, and it'll be here before we know it. So this is the time to, I'm drafting legislation now for next session, because once we start February 5th with a 3-month session, we're done in no time. So I do encourage people to reach out to me.
That's great, Terry. That reminds me that I want to connect you with the folks that run Right at Home.
I'm meeting with them next Friday.
Perfect, because I think there's some legislative initiatives
Correct.
that are needed from that nonprofit.
Yes, there was something that passed this year that is not, well, it needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, I want to correct myself. I don't think they're a nonprofit, but I had a meeting with them, and there were clearly some issues that need legislative attention.
Right, but thank you, because you introduced them to me and they called me, and we do have a date in the calendar next Friday.
For anybody that doesn't know, Right at Home, not to be confused with At Home in Darien, Right at Home provides in-home service to the elderly. And wonderful people, great organization, and it's certainly a way to help manage healthcare costs when you look at the big picture. So thank you.
And keep people at home.
Yes.
It's critical.
Yep. Okay, I have a couple of things. First, I want to congratulate everybody around the table for their nominations this week at our party caucuses. Last week, I had the privilege of attending a couple of conferences in Washington, D.C. The first one was the Northeast region at the White House, with a variety of different, very interesting panels. They talked a lot about opportunity zones, which is something that All the states have opportunity zones, and I think we have 72 of them in the state of Connecticut. And it's places where, through public and private partnerships, they're looking to enhance economic development. We don't have any in Darien, but we definitely have one just across the border in Stamford, and I'm sure there's some in Norwalk too. So that was a fantastic day at the White House. And then for the following 2 days, Senator Blumenthal and Senator Murphy hosted Connecticut in the Capitol. And again, we had really informative panels on things like the opioid crisis, trade and tariffs, congressional oversight. So it was really kind of a very mind-expanding experience for me. I had never gone to that before, but I was pleased to be able to represent the town of Darien at all of those meetings. Terry, regarding tolls, WestCog invited and Commissioner Giletti came to our COG meeting this past week. And I will say that I sense that Commissioner Giletti is a little bit frustrated with the political world going on right now. He made mention that he's literally spent 3 days in his office at CONDOT because he needs to go around the state sort of pitching tolls everywhere, which I'm not sure is the best use of our commissioner's time necessarily. But there's still some thought that this idea of an aggressive tolling plan may not go forward. They're still considering bridge-only tolls, which is very interesting because it would provide half the revenue, but it might be a way to get some money in the STF coffers. So I can understand why they're not ready to bring it for a vote yet. But it was very generous of him to come. He spent a lot of time answering a lot of questions on the part of WestCog. Yes.
I just want to add something on that. One of the things that's out there that is misinformation, the trucks need to pay tolls. Well, they're already paying a fee to the state of Connecticut via a quarterly billing, and maybe the commissioner touched on that. It runs from $130 to $150 million a year.
Yes.
Through an interstate tolling system. So we already are collecting revenue from trucks.
And Terry, where does that money go?
It presumably goes to the Special Transportation Fund, and I think that's the frustration that some of us have. I mean, I support tolls in concept, but until we get control of our spending in our state, we can't, well, that's my personal view. And what I will say 80 to 90% of my constituents across the political spectrum support is we've got to get spending under control in this state before we put one more fee, and it is a user fee. I don't see it so much as a tax, but it is a fee that people will have to pay to get to their jobs. The other, what if tolls happen across the spectrum or across the board rather than just the bridge-only tolling, there would be 3 fees, one for out-of-state drivers, another fee for, or another rate for those who live in-state, and then another rate totally for those who are commuting on a regular basis.
Yeah. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah. How many boxes do you check?
Well, maybe we there's a curve out there for
Connecticut employee.
I'd be commuting on a regular basis.
Yes, I know, and that's
an interesting point for you to bring up, Terry. Is what about
Exactly.
Connecticut employees?
Right.
Yeah, because there were
Right.
actually signs in Greenwich that I would see every morning on my way to work.
Right.
The yes, vote no for tolls, and then vote yes to get the out-of-state people to pay their share. And I'm like, wait, do pay Connecticut income tax,
Yeah.
It is important to remember that, but,
But that's why I'm writing this piece. It's taking a while. It's going to take a while because there's a volume of information such as that. All those little details that add up to, it's not as easy as yes or no.
Sure. I can provide some information to you as well.
Terrific.
I think the rollout of the idea of tolls was poorly done. We had come to CCM Commissioner Giletti and Tom Maziarz, who's been sort of deemed, the commissioner's right-hand guy for talking about tolling. And there's actually a very detailed plan about where the revenue from the tolling plan will be spent with projects in every district. And I think that's very valuable to be able to say, okay, here in southwestern Connecticut, here's the projects that we can do with the revenue. I don't think that's widely known, but I have that and I'll send that to you.
Terrific, thank you.
And I think if they address some of the concerns about where the tolls are positioned, if they're positioned poorly, it will lead to people jumping off to
Yeah.
avoid the tolls and jumping onto the local roads and thus putting a burden on the local, police departments, highway departments.
I'd also say I don't think they've done enough to build or rebuild the public confidence in how this money's being spent.
That's exactly
A
right.
big
Well,
part of this
that's-
problem and why I'm an absolute no on tolls has got nothing to do with tolls raising revenue to support the projects for which they're intended. I can certainly get my mind around that, but there's not a good track record of doing
No.
that. And
Well,
I don't-
yeah, well, how long will they promise that it goes to what they're saying it's going to these projects, but what happens in 5 years?
For example.
But that's my point. So
Right.
until I start to get confidence on that, I'm a vocal no on all of this.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
There was a $175 million
Yeah.
from the new car sales tax that the legislature voted.
Well, the majority party, we did not.
Okay, voted to go into the Special Transportation Fund 2
Right.
sessions ago. And the governor changed that, so that money is now going into the general fund. So in essence, it was a maneuver to starve the STF, to push the toll agenda, and I think that was not really
Right.
evidencing a commitment to funding transportation, if you will. I know that they needed monies, they're sort of moving it around where they need it, I get that. But I think it's those things that may seem to be an appropriate executive decision that for those of us who, at the local level, we see it as a lack of commitment to transportation.
That's exactly right.
Okay, our executive director of WestCog, Francis Pickering, I'm really proud to say has been named by Themis Claridis to serve on the ACIR, the Advisory Committee on Intergovernment Relations, which most people have never heard of, but I can guarantee you're going to be hearing more of them because ACER is now entrusted with coming up with studies and plans on regional service delivery. So I'm really glad that our region has a representative at the table on that.
And capable. He
Very
knows the
capable.
details.
Absolutely.
And important questions to ask.
Yep. And he's great because he takes feedback from all of our 18-member communities. We're working on the Highland Farm RFP, or I should say staff is working on the Highland Farm RFP so that we can get out there and hopefully begin construction this fall on parking lots and a walking trail. We met with the folks from the Oxbridge Riding and Racquet Club yesterday to do an after action on this year's horse show. And we all made some mutual suggestions and are working on some new plans for next year, given that we're going to have a constructed environment on our land that we obviously don't want damaged from situations. You can never plan for rain like we had this year, but we have communicated how important it is that our property is not damaged, but we still want to be a good partner and honor our commitment to the Riding and Racquet Club to continue the tradition, the over 100-year tradition of the Oxbridge Horse Show. The Board of Selectmen is going to be working on a couple of things, and I have a request of board heads around this table and RTM. The Board of Selectmen would like to develop a community value statement. And it's a simple statement, not easy to draft, because it can't be issue specific, and you don't want it to favor one policy over another, but it's a statement that we all can use, that when people are looking at our town to maybe move here or bring a business here, what do we stand for? What does this community mean to us? So I'd like each and every one of the boards to have a discussion about that and offer feedback to me so that our board can take that up in the coming weeks. I'd like to do that before the board turns over in November so that we have the input of Mark and Pam and all of the folks that are sitting on your boards right now. I'm going to be working, Susan and I went to a meeting with the Fire Commission the other day and got some feedback about some areas in town that have poor cell service. And and I'm going to be working through our emergency management department to try and identify those areas so that we can be assured for public safety purposes that we have sufficient coverage. We're also going to be taking up the false alarm fees and looking at a graduated structure for fees because there seems to be an inordinate number of repeat offenders on false fire alarms. And so the commission would very much like us to restructure our fees around that. And then we too are going to be working on board goals and objectives before the board turns over. So that's all that I have for today. Yes,
Just a
John?
question, I'm sorry. So for the community value statement, is that something the Board of Selectmen is going to draft and react to? Did you want input from each board?
We want
in
input
terms of
from
that?
each of the boards, and then we will do the final drafting.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's all I have today. Does anyone have any other business that they'd like to take up today? No? Okay, we have two guests here. Thank you for coming, Jill and Joe. Okay. All right. Then if hearing no other business, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Motion for adjournment.
John, second, John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Zoom charts, that's